Bem-vindos a mais um episódio do Don't Panic, It's Organic, na nossa playlist Hanging with the Pros. Nessa semana, a gente vai entrevistar Deepak Shukla, um cara que é fera no SEO, tem uma agência em Londres, maratonista, Ironman, o cara é fera. So, Deepak Shukla, Managing Director of Lemon, and founder as well, right? An award-winning agency in London. You guys are going to love his story about with Lemon, and I'm not going to spoil anything at the moment. But not only that, this guy is a sportsman on its, like, I cannot even describe. Maratonist, Ironman, technical KO fights, and also a great SEO professional, and recently mentioned by Forbes. Deepak Shukla, sorry. Please, God, man, welcome to the show. Thank you for accepting my invitation. And please tell us, introduce yourself now to our audience here in Brazil. Who is Deepak? What's he doing? And
well, yeah, absolutely. Well, Felipe, audience. This is the first time, believe it or not, I've been on a call where I listened to Felipe talking, of course, Brazilian Portuguese. So that was wonderful for me to hear it live. I've seen it on video. So I don't know what this man's saying, but it looks engaging. And now I get to experience it face to face. So guys, my name's Deepak. I love marketing, especially search engine optimization, of course, ranking on Google. I discovered search engine optimization could be something that I could build a business around August 2017. When I remember I got onto a phone call with a prospect. At that time, I thought I'd run a full service digital marketing agency. And I remember George getting onto a call with me and saying, Deepak, I want to talk about lead generation. I know that SEO takes time. It takes 6 months to rank, and it's a journey that we go on, and I'm in it for the long haul. I heard that and I thought, aha, this sounds like a good business to be in. He's happy to wait 6 months for a result. Little did I know how challenging that would become when you go into sales calls with commercial directors about the financial return on investment from SEO. But that's where my journey started with Lemon. And, as you said before that, I spent some time in Rio where I had my fight from Mauy Thay when I was living in Brazil for a few months, 2014, and I'm really enjoying the journey I'm on with Lemon. We do some link building for one of our clients in Brazil, actually, and just excited to talk to you, Felipe, about everything and anything.
Now, it's a really good pleasure to have you here, Deepak. I think the first time we talked was in the beginning of this year, through SEMrush, right? You were doing that agency successful story, something like that.
Correct.
I don't remember. And then I think we just had this entrepreneurial connection, right? And I remember when the pandemic started, you dropped me a message and how's things are going. I said, these people like that in the industry. This is the beauty that I love about the industry, is that we can connect with people and exchange experiences. And when I started looking at your company, your background, I said, this is some guy that really could have a lot to share with us. As I was saying to you here in Brazil, we've got it's very limited, the people who people follow, and bringing you guys the experience especially you have in the industry, it's very good. But everybody that I talk with in the SEO industry, and I think you just gave us some ideas, started doing something else. So you came across SEO. You didn't came across SEO in 2017, but you started working with that in 2017. Am I correct?
Yeah, correct. So that's when I just decided that I would build an SEO focused agency. I worked freelance as a freelance marketer from probably 2014, maybe even 2012, that I started delving into marketing. And then 2014, I decided that I would offer marketing services as a freelancer. That was how I was able to live in Rio and fight Mauy Thay, because I was doing freelance digital marketing. I didn't really recognize what a digital nomad was then. I was more interested in the Thai kickboxing
All
than I
right.
was when I was the marketing. But really from 2017, 2018, I began to 2016 when I started the agency. That was where I really began to become serious about digital marketing and specifically SEO. I first actually came across it in 2010 when I left my job, a corporate job at Deloitte. I was a consultant and I quit and I needed to make some money. And my friend said, Deepak, I think you'd make a good teacher. Why don't you, in the part-time, just teach English? Because I was an English graduate. So I said, okay. I remember putting one ad up on Gumtree. It cost me £6. And within a week, I started to get a couple of phone calls. And I thought, this is quite interesting. I went back onto Gumtree. I looked at the top performing ads for my niche on Gumtree. I started to understand, based upon the top 3 ads that I saw were premium, I knew how much they were spending. They were spending £20-30. And I thought, they're spending 5 times as much as I am. They must be making a lot more money than I am. What are they doing? I changed my profile picture. I started inserting different keywords in the title and in the description. And then I saw, based upon different searches on Gumtree I was doing, that I'd begin to appear in 2 or 3 more searches. Within 5 days, I started to get 3 times as many phone calls. And then I thought, wow, this is making me more money. And that was the point at which I became fascinated with. At that time, I was keyword stuffing, and at that time, it worked on Gumtree. But that was where the fascination began.
I think that's interesting that you're bringing that up, because I talk a lot about this as well, that SEO is not just about Google, right? We've conducted a research here in Brazil recently to understand how people search and so on. 98% of people or Brazilians or consumers, if you will, use Google.
Yeah.
But for the industry as a whole, it's not just about Google, is it? You have obviously the obvious ones, Google Images, YouTube, but in my perception is that everything there is a search engine, there is SEO. You share that as well. And you just started doing SEO back in 2010 on Gumtree, trying to improve your rankings there, right?
That was exactly. I didn't understand it consciously as SEO then. I did it because it had a direct commercial impact upon my ability to actually grow my business, and it continued. I in the end was able to build a tutoring agency that got to about £7,000 to £10,000 a month, purely because of the keyword stuffing or this SEO. And then I started to look at multiple locations. So I thought, okay, so Gumtree is a platform a little bit like local-based SEO that functions based upon where you're based in the country. Then I discovered that the only way to maintain a listing in Birmingham when I was based in London was to look at using a VPN to trick Gumtree into thinking that I was in Birmingham and then getting a local Birmingham address. And then I discovered I was able to have 2 listings. Then I discovered that if I had duplicate listings, they would get removed because they were considered to be obviously copied text. Then I had to start adding variation into it. And then I discovered that in Birmingham, people were using slightly different keywords. And this whole process directly impacted my ability to grow my tutoring agency every time. So there was a solid year where I'm pretty sure I was the UK's Gumtree master, because it was
Gumtree Awards, Deepak, he won it.
But yeah, you're quite right. And you've actually reminded me right now. It's like, actually, my journey started really in 2010, because that was the moment where I began to understand a lot of the raw fundamentals based around like, what is it that makes a great keyword and content optimized. Because then I began to look at pictures, what pictures increase click-through rate. Then I began to look at the ads that had the best videos did better. I began to call Gumtree reps because I was maybe spending a few £100 on Gumtree, and get to knowing the reps and asking them about some of the tips. And this all happened over, a 6 to 12 month period where I was trying to maximize my returns as big as possible on Gumtree.
Well, you started just like any other SEO out there, experimenting, understanding how the algorithm works, and obviously testing it, experimenting. Oh, this didn't work. I got banned. So another profile comes in, slightly different. We started with websites and so on until okay, now we're making money. We don't really need to keep gaming it.
Yeah.
So
It's
for me, it's just like what's fascinating about the industry. Because we are like always trying to reverse engineering things and deploying things and then building them up again to understand how things work and testing it. So it amazes me how people can build their businesses, their life doing that, and this is why I always tell people down here that stop just following what others tell you. Go and test it. You have to test it, not just, because I've read that. And a lot of people are here saying, because Google wants that. Nobody won't know what Google wants. Seriously. Now, you don't know Google. No, actually, I know what Google wants. You know what Google wants.
Yeah.
Money.
Yeah. That's I was like, is this a trick question? Is that money? Is that,
But man, so back in 2010, you started working remotely.
Yeah.
Now it's a trendy word, digital nomads and so on. How did you kind of obviously you said it with the mentoring stuff, but what tips can you give to someone starting that now? They decided okay, I'm just going to give up my corporate job, or even with the agency, I just want to travel more.
Absolutely.
With all these years of experience, because you continue to be, let's say, on the cloud, you still work remotely. What tips can you give for someone starting that journey now?
Absolutely. So I think if you're just starting and you're seeking to, it's really, really important to think of your digital footprint in the same way that you think about the home that you live in. Robert Kiyosaki would call your home a liability, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, but we all ultimately emotionally consider the home in which we live and we raise our family to be our asset, the car that we drive to be the vehicle that we present ourselves to the world, the haircut we keep, the tattoos we have, whoever you are. Now, you also have another asset. It's what appears when people not just Google you, it's LinkedIn look up you, it's Facebook look up you, it's Instagram look up you, okay? There's a couple of digital media channels that you need to think about in the same way that you think about how you present yourself when you walk into an interview room.
Right.
How are you dressed? What is your posture and your stride like? Did you clean and buff your shoes? Are you in an environment where they even care about your shoes? Are you in a, startup Google or Snapchat type environment, or are you in a financial services type of environment? The equivalent is how you are on Instagram is probably a bit different to how you are on LinkedIn. So when you're thinking about building yourself digitally or building a business, you're probably in potentially employment right now. The biggest asset that I would say that you have is think about all of your media channels online and ultimately optimize them for humans to look at, okay? For people to look at. Think about the person who could potentially buy your freedom. If that's me and I'm going to spend $2,000 a month with you, and $2,000 a month, guys, you can travel the world on $2,000 a month. It's a great salary. It's freelance. You probably can work 5 to 8 hours a week and keep a client very happy on $2,000 a month. You don't need a lot. It's one person, okay? And for one person, you probably need 5 people looking at you, and then one person eventually buys. Now, to get that person, imagine that person's Felipe. Imagine that person's me. He will probably look, if he's going to spend $2,000 a month with you, maybe all he has is $6,000 a month. So when you're prospecting or you're messaging people, make sure that you position yourself properly, make sure that you've got relevant active multimedia channels, and then I think you'll be in a really good place to get your first client and start to follow a remote life.
Would you advise, like you already answered one of my questions, is like, because I think the biggest fear people have is the financial stability and having money to travel around. And
yeah,
obviously, if I was to become a digital nomad, I would say I want to travel the world, so I need some income coming.
yeah.
So you said $2,000 is enough for you to travel around, and I totally agree with you. Obviously, if you have a life that you go out dining every night and you go to the pub, and obviously that's not going to happen. You need a different kind of stance. But do you see, like, now this trend coming to people that have stable jobs? For instance, I don't know, analysts from agencies or any other company. Do you see that trend coming up? Because you think that will become possible with this new?
Absolutely. I think that we're going to live this new environment that we're living in is supercharging the gig economy. It's supercharging honestly, the potentially, probably more and more often, the 7-figure business in the bedroom owner. I mean, the tools were always there for you, even 5 years ago, but now more than ever, the mindset is there for you, because a lot of barriers have been taken away through force. You know, I've got a 55-year-old brother-in-law who's a financial planner who works for the last 30 years, suit, tie, boardroom, meets clients, WhatsApps barely, face-to-face meetings. COVID was such a transformative experience for him that he would never have willingly walked into. Now his team are decentralized. He's discovered the world of Microsoft Teams, of Zoom, of screen sharing, of WhatsApp voice notes.
Sharing, isn't it? Whoa.
yeah. So I think that, it depends. Obviously, everybody. I don't know, of course, who I'm talking to in terms of your sophistication. Some of these things might be very obvious. Some of them might not. But the biggest challenge that many of us have is the psychology behind it, and being able to ride through, that, and to answer a different question. What you need to have a pipeline to be successful on a continual basis. You definitely do need to have a pipeline. So one client is not enough. It is true, because at any given time, one client might cancel. So for every,
and you are in Australia and he cancels that, and then what?
yeah, exactly. And then it's like, then what? So you do need the ability to replenish your pipeline. And by pipeline, I mean people that are potentially interested in using the Pearl Lemon service, the Don't Panic, It's Organic, the Hedgehog Digital, whatever, your service. They need to, and that requires time or a strategy, and that requires a system. So I think that the way to do it on a continual basis is to have a system that will generate interested people, leads to talk to you. And there's many different kinds of systems you can build, but I think that actually is the biggest thing that's missing from the conversation around becoming a digital nomad. That actually the biggest thing you need, people, is a pipeline, because your client might cancel, circumstances might change, contracts get torn up overnight. You need to have, on any given month, 4 or 5 really good conversations with people that do have the money, that might spend money with you, and that will actually buy your freedom.
Right. That's interesting, because I was going to ask you if you think it's possible for someone that wants to live that life rely on these freelancing websites, because obviously you do give your money, but you're competing against each other. Would you say it's a bit risky just to rely on those guys? You need to keep opening up conversations, and if so, how do you keep the pipe flooding?
Absolutely.
How do you do that traveling?
Absolutely. So I'll give you guys a good insight. So you can, having one source for anything, of course, is bad. Like in life, if you go to the same specific wine and cheese shop and you never try anywhere else, and then that shop shuts down, you know, you have a problem. That's a problem that's very easy to solve. It's not a I need to change my lifestyle problem, but it's the same thing with pipeline. So the example that I'll give is, we've got an agency that we do some work with. They make about £7,000 to £9,000 a month from Fiverr.com, which was a big surprise to me. And that was really impressive. They're a Bosnian design agency, which you know, they built their business around Fiverr. They £9,000, I presume, a month in Bosnia. Perhaps it takes you really far, and you can live a damn good life. Yeah, there's like 4 of the guys, but you know, it's good, you know, and they now also generate decent amount of business from Upwork. They're beginning to start to do a couple of $1,000s. So always have more than one pipeline, but it's natural that you'll focus upon the channel that makes you the most return. So I do think, yeah, that it's possible. But you need to have a process when you're traveling, okay? And a process can be something as simple as find or figure out what your system is for getting that prospect, and document that process, and give someone else the mechanical parts of that process, and try and, if you can, teach them as much as you can about some of the creative elements. But you've got to build out the creativity. For me, the way that you scale a process is you build out the creativity. And that means that someone who has no previous experience could watch a 15-minute video from Felipe about broken link building and understand the core mechanics of what they need to do. Okay, I've got to go to Hrefs. I've got to look up the backlink profile. I've got to look at 404s. I've got to look at number of 404s. I've got to look at the pages. I've got to, and actually there's a process behind it that you could teach anybody. And if you empower whoever you're working with, then you can travel the world. Because a good example, have a video process that one of my team does where they submit 10 applications a day on Upwork. And I don't do any of the conversations. All I do is wait for the calls to come into my diary, and then Upwork will generate maybe £5,000 to £8,000 a month in new business for us. Because, and I've baked it down to a 10-minute process, because I wrote down the common FAQs. I wrote down the potential answers in detail to the most common questions. And I told Lydia to ignore anything outside of that framework or ask me directly. So I spend probably about 30 minutes to 45 minutes a week answering some of her specific questions. And otherwise, I'm just on the phone calls. And she does all of the manual kind of labor, if you will. And that will, you know, I look at the return on investment and I'm like, great, I spend 45 nights, you know, and guys, you can do this. You can do this. You just got to get familiar enough with the process, do it yourself for a while, and then document it, and then outsource it or give it to one of your team. And then you kind of move up. And I think that those two things, establishing a pipeline and then having someone manage your pipeline. So you have to focus on the part that makes you the most money, whether you're a freelancer or, because if you want to freelance, the truth is, if you're in Bali, you've got a cocktail or a tequila and you're partying the night before, so you're hungover, the thing that's going to make you money probably are the 2 phone calls a day that are really good conversations. But then, of course, you need to deliver. So the irony is, I think, to continually nomad, you either need to live cheap and have 1 or 2 clients that mean that, you know, I get $2,000 a month. I can live well in Thailand and Southeast Asia, and I can eat well, live well. But if you're then going to the United States and you're taking $2,000 a month, it's a different dialogue.
Yeah. Now, so what you're saying is, correct me if I'm wrong, it's the same process of building up just a traditional company. You need a pipeline, you need conversations, you need process. It doesn't change a lot. Is that how Pearl Lemon came to fruition? Because you've been doing that since 2010, living your life, developing your process, traveling and so on. And then out of a sudden, your process became so effective that you needed to hire more people. Is that how Pearl Lemon?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Would you care to share a little bit more how that becomes structured? Because I find it very interesting, the model that you guys have.
Absolutely. So guys, our team's entirely remote. We're maybe 25 people, something like this. We remain extremely profitable because we have people that work part-time, 20 hours a month, 10 hours a month, servicing clients that are spending £3,000 to £5,000 a month. The way that that's possible is because we have everything. I, from day one, had to document everything. It was the only way that I could make the agency scale and work as a business, because I wanted to have a technical team that were in India. Actually, not because the assumption is Deepak is up, it's actually because my family are from India and I always wanted to spend money in India. And for me, it was like a little bit of kind of cultural, but at the same time, you know, the economies of scale are challenging, are advantageous. But for example, communication then becomes problematic, or does it? When you have 3 to 5 clients that you manage entirely almost by yourself, you discover 80% of the questions that they will ask. And when you discover 80% of the questions that you will ask, you'll write 100% of the answers to those questions.
Right.
Then
you have them ready, right?
Yeah, and we give that to the Indian team. They have documented templates for responses. At any point, a client asks a question that falls outside of our typical response, I record a video, and that video goes into one of our responses that then the team will use and supplement anything that we've got. So using that fundamental process, and processes break, of course, but a new person comes in, and the rule of thumb is that new person has to read through the process, but they also have to improve the process as they read through it, as things go out of date, and they have to improve the documentation. So all of our documentation always has comment access, and then when someone's been long enough with us, they have edit access. And on any given 8-week cycle, if you have to go in and improve the process. That's kind of a rule. So the process continues to iterate over time. So it's also why, I mean, it's more annoying sometimes, but I mean, we're a small agency, but we've got like maybe 30 clients. I still don't have a project manager. There's not one project manager within the whole business, because on average, our clients book a call with us once every 2 months.
Right.
Because everything happens on email.
It's a dream.
And we have the question I always wanted to ask myself was, our biggest clients, we're a small, our biggest clients pay us £5,500 a month. My question in my mind was, how could I convince Felipe to pay me £5,000 a month, easy number, but to not want to talk to me? What does he need? He needs every question he could have answered, documented. He needs to know so much about the process and get such robust responses. He'd be like, well, I could talk to Deepak, but I've got all of the answers I need. There's nothing that I really need to ask him about.
But the main answer that Felipe wants as the client, results are results. So if you're delivering it, I found out through all these years in the industry that if you deliver it, clients won't even bother you, you know. They will just like, yeah, fine, do you want to do the monthly report? Because we have that a lot, you know, like between the UK and Brazil now, we've got over 40 clients of all various sources. So I spend most of my days doing calls with clients, you know, explaining to them, and this has been something, I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I've been working a lot in process, you know, trying to get as much of the operational side of things out from myself so I can, to be honest, leave, because it's long hours, man. I've been doing like, and sometimes
process will save you. You're so right, man. It's amazing that that's like a point of focus. I was simply forced to do it because of the decision that I made, that I wanted to build a successful agency, but it's like, I don't want to talk to anybody and I don't want to do the work particularly, but I want Felipe to be happy. Now, if you start with that as your rule, it forces you to, so a lot of this, guys, is about asking the right question. The question is, how can I earn $5,000 a month traveling the world with 2 to 3 clients who only talk to me once every 2 to 3 months? How can I do it? And then if you work back from that point, then that becomes very powerful. And that was, I guess, because I spent several years during my 20s traveling, backpacking, and that was the world that I came from. So Pearl Lemon started as Per Traffic. It was a partnership with a friend of mine that failed year one, and it failed because we had a different way of doing business. He has a office, 17 employees, prides himself, as he should, on face-to-face meetings, clients that have a different psychology and mindset and approach to the way that I wanted to do it. I came into the room and it was like I was an alien. I said, oh, why don't we have a Zoom instead of meeting up? Why don't I send you a screencast recording running you through your report? Why don't you add me on my WhatsApp number and I'll send you a voice note letting you know how we're getting on? That did not work in that environment, and it meant that we weren't very compatible as partners. But now, you know, that has proven, thankfully, with the adoption, of course, of WhatsApp so massively, at least in the West, that we get clients onto WhatsApp. We then have a little WhatsApp group set up. Anytime a client requests a call, we say, oh, Felipe, what are the questions you've got out of interest? Because I know we've got the call tomorrow, but I'd love to just kind of hear from you, because, you know, you asked for the call now. You're probably thinking about it now. Actually, Deepak, yeah, this is the question I have about this or that. Brilliant. These are the answers. Do you think we still need the call? Yeah, you know what? We probably don't. Don't worry about it. You answered all my questions. Cheers, dude.
And looking at that, if you think about it, I think you are very close to automating most of that process as well. You won't even need employees for that to a certain extent. You've got the advent of chatbots coming on, because the way you said it, in my mind, I was going, hang on, chatbot could do some of that. Because if you said, there are some we've got pre-made questions that we know clients will ask, and this is how you guys reply it. That's a chatbot working, isn't it? So to a certain extent, I don't think everything, because I still believe that there's the humanizing part of the business must be there still. Otherwise, people just would hire tools and then that's job done. I think there's a lot of automation coming that way, especially with what automated answers on WhatsApps and WhatsApp bots as well, which to a certain extent could not eliminate human labor by
but you reduce the friction.
Exactly. And interesting. And go on.
So guys, if you're a freelancer or if you're an agency, get in the mind of thinking of yourself as being a SaaS company. It's service as a subscription.
All right.
Service as a subscription. That's the model that you have. Systematize it, because they are repeatable clients. And it took me a little while to figure that out. And I hated the first year of my agency, Felipe, because I didn't have proper systems. I did not have proper systems.
I see.
But now I can say, we have just launched a vegan food prep company, and I'm most of my time is spent doing completely different things from Pearl Lemon, because I spent a real hard year trying to build so many processes to try and, as much as I can, get you to a place where you be, of course, happy with the results, but happy enough to give to pay for my freedom to say, Deepak, I want to talk to you, but you sent me documented responses for every question I could possibly have. How does Google Search Console work? What is Google Analytics? Deepak, I'm having a problem with Tag Manager. I need to give your team edit and ownership access. We built over 200 email templated responses with videos for how to do those specific things, which are handled by the team in India. And for them, it becomes mechanical, because they're like, oh, this is this problem. We just send them that email, then that's done. And it reduces friction so much. And that was something that I'm still working upon, don't get me wrong, but that has been really, really powerful in enabling me to have a bit more freedom than I ordinarily would.
And it's amazing, because with process, you are able to analyze in detail what's working or not. That's really data-driven. That's the real data-driven stuff, because you can look at the responses and say, look, out of 200 responses for that subject, 99 are not working, so get rid of them and work with that. And as you evolve, you analyze those information. It's easier. My point is, you can analyze what's working and not. It's not just a matter of like, oh, it's that that guy, he's not very good with email. It's nothing to do with that, because it's just a matter of like actually the answer that is not good. So I think that systematizes and provides you with a scalability opportunity that's massive, isn't it?
And that's what people feel that isn't possible with an agency, because of the mindset. I think that sometimes, like, even, you know, it's the same, you know, guys, if whether you're a freelancer or an agent, a business owner, like, you know, it's really, think about tickets that people submit to Zendesk or to your chat forums. What we do, so for example, we have just rolled out, we're trying to build a PPC side of our business because we want to try. So what we're doing, we've set up a page for PPC Services London. We've just achieved, we're page 62 for PPC Agency London. We're beginning our journey to try and get to
competitive.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got our first couple of clients. Well, we've got one client at the moment for PPC. This client, it's going to be an experiment. We're good, but we've never delivered it as a service, right? But what will happen, and this is what I tend to do, is apply the rule of 5. My rule of 5 is your first 5 clients, you should do, for a new service, you should do absolutely everything that they ask for, even to the point of it being pedantic, problematic, because those 5 clients, especially if you then, each client, I believe, depending upon the service, especially if it's new, will at some point fail. They'll churn. They will say, I found a better provider. They will say, it didn't work. They will say, maybe they'll be great. And sometimes it does happen. But what we do is we then look at 2 months in, this client didn't quite work. We tried our hardest. We pull out every possible question that they asked, spreadsheet it all, and start building documents and processes around it. So then for the next client coming along, we have significantly less friction because we have templated responses. We've got a video response. And for some reason, service as a subscription is not treated in the same way that software is, where you fix bugs and you improve features and you reduce, you know, churn, or, you know, all of that kind of stuff. And if we think about agencies a bit more like that, I think that it's easier to begin to build some of these processes when you accept that, you know what, we're shipping version 1. Obviously, we think it's our best version 1, but people are going to probably complain, and there isn't that same culture always with the agency mindset, which the more I think that people look at it in that fashion, the more you can begin to buy your own freedom.
No, I think the key that I'm picking up from you saying, and it's ringing the bell in my head all the time, is buy your freedom. Find ways to have the time, because that answered one of my questions that I had to you in a minute. But the funny thing is, it took me a pandemic to realize that I didn't need an office. You were saying a minute ago that, okay, I did a few meetings and the other. We had the office here in São Paulo. Do you know how many meetings I had in the office with clients?
I'd assume 5 to 10 a week.
No, 3 in 1 year.
Wow.
Because I invited them over and took them for lunch. That's all. And I said, then we sat down and said, why half of my wife works with me in the company. She's project manager.
Nice. I knew that. Yeah.
And they said, do we really need the office? Let's think about it. No. São Paulo, the traffic is chaotic. Public transportation is non-existent. Well, there is tubes and all, but you can't really use it. Right now, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and it's not safe for us nor the team to travel. And I've noticed that the team became more motivated, and so I said, you know what? Decision made. We're not going to have an office anymore.
Wow! Amazing.
But if I had only stopped for a while and thought about it, I could have done that a year ago and saved myself a lot of money.
Well, I think that for all of us, including myself, different obvious realizations are only obvious at the point at which you implement them. I think that, fundamentally, a good example, we've just hired a new sales guy, and he's like, Deepak, what do you use as your CRM? And I say, I use Google Sheets, bro.
Spreadsheets?
Yeah. And he was like, And I looked him. I'd not checked his LinkedIn or closely enough. He's like double HubSpot certified. He's bounces between like Agile CRM, done sales strategy consulting, and he's like, dude, like you're just like burning money because you don't know who's followed up with him. You don't know what, and you know that is things that are very obvious to others are not. You know, that is not, for whatever reason, it wasn't obvious to me, and I'm like, oh damn, you know, I wish I kind of cottoned on before, but it took a pandemic for me to realize that I probably need a CRM. So
But do you,
I
do you
think that
really think you need a CRM? Because I have a saying that normally in Portuguese has more impact, which is basic is advanced, which is like with a spreadsheet, it's my CRM. Do I need anything else? Have you really lost money all this time? Okay, but it can improve from now on. That's different, you know, I think. And I'm always up for that. I have done the basics very well. For me, that's where you get the advanced stuff, you know. I see a lot of people in the industry going log file analysis and this. We do that for like the enterprise clients. But when you look at people talking about that and you go and watch and look at they can't even compile a title or a meta description. And I said, mate, you're not even doing the basics. And we've used the same, like this guy comes with their jargons from all the courses that they had from, sorry, Deepak employee, if you're hearing me, I'm not nothing against you. It's just like a lot of people, because they come with that, they're like robots, like brainwashed, you know. HubSpot and all these companies did so much in their brains. Like, oh, you need to do that. You need your ROAS. You need I just need to do what makes sense to my business. And this is what I really want people to understand, you know. Sometimes all this industry guy, okay, HubSpot got to where it is, public company and so on, not taking the merits of these guys. Obviously, they really did a good job, especially in what you're saying. They systematize everything, they have process, all their content, you know, and they helped a lot of companies. But what I want people to understand is that not everything that you read on an ebook or that you saw on a video, you must go and do it, you know. I see a lot of, sometimes I do interviews with new employees and so on to try and hire them, and they come with all the industry jargon. I said, no. Because you just read Brian Dean's ebook, with all due respect, which is good. And I know what he's saying because I follow him. I saw the videos, but when you ask like a logical question, people can get away with it. So I think the industry, it's too much addicted to all these jargons and so on. And glad in talking to guys like you that really question that status quo, you know. We're going after our business and our thing, and this is where great things come to fruition, isn't it?
No, I completely agree, man. I completely agree, and I think that, you know, it's interesting what you said about like there's a huge danger in not building kind of diversity into your education. People can get sucked into a particular guru, whether it's Brian Dean, whether it's someone else, or HubSpot or Salesforce, or and become, you know, a bit of a preacher for that. But you know, there's nothing I think that replaces, as you said, like real world experience. And certainly, you know, I have recognized that, like you said, questioning the status quo. Like for me, it was, how can I buy freedom for Pearl Lemon? I was like, I have to do outbound in the beginning, and I need a process, you know, for outbound, and we kind of built that. But then I need to do also, I want inbound. You know, we're an SEO agency. Let's do inbound. So, you know, one of the you know, and kind of having a North Star and ignoring the naysayers, I think is very important. And you know, that's been instrumental in all our sales guys now are commission only, zero salary, because we generate 170 leads a month through Google to our website. So I'm like, okay, let's pass the leads around. And that's how we're scaling. You know, we want to get to 300 leads a month by February, hopefully. And that's where a huge amount of our investment goes into, because then Pearl Lemon becomes an asset that I can sell for 7 figures, because it's a lead generation machine effectively for high ticket services. And I think that, you know, guys, you're right. It's just test, try. It's the Gumtree thing all over again. It's that. It's just Gumtree 2.0.
It's the basic that became advanced, right? So basic, do the basics right. You're still doing you're still doing the same, by the looks of it, you're still doing the same thing that you were doing at Gumtree at a different scale, with a different point of view, but you're still trying to nail the basics as good as possible.
Yeah,
Correct?
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's like the basics are the same, you know. It's, as you said, it's like try, test, figure this out. That worked. Let's try and do a lot more of that. How well can it work until it breaks? Okay, that broke. Let's step back and let's maybe try and do this. And having that fluid approach to business, I think, is very important when it comes to ranking on Google, or it comes to building a totally remote team. And it's also very easy, as I just demonstrated, you know, on this call, you need to sense check yourself, because you will come across people that say, you need to do this. Why isn't that in place? And it's always important to take any advice you get, whether it's from me, whether it's from Felipe, whether it's from with a pinch of salt. That usually you take about 10% of what someone says, and you're able to execute that in a way that makes sense for you. And that's a fine thing. And that's why fluidity, and why you need to read 10 books about SEO instead of one, makes a lot of sense, because you'll ultimately only be able to take 2% here, 5% there, maybe 15% once, but never 100%. You know, it's so contextual and so relative, and often so out of date sometimes, that it's important to keep, as you said, trying, testing.
It's amazing. Deepak, I was going to have a last question to you before we head into the last part of our interview, which is 2 little games that I do with everybody that comes here.
Nice.
But yeah, I was going to ask you, how do you find time to do everything? Because you run marathons, you did Ironmans, you obviously need time to train, but you answered my questions throughout this talk with process, systems, you know, having everything in place and scaling things up. And I think the word I'm going to take here, and it's possibly the answer for my little game that we're going to have in a minute, is like buying your freedom.
Yeah.
Find ways, which means find ways to be able to do what you want and still make money, you know, like live the life. And because like I seen you did the same thing I have in myself. It's like, it's this passion to work, but we also want to enjoy life. We enjoy making money, but in a nice way, in the way that we want, in the way we can enjoy it. Like if I want to travel to Rio and so on, like I'm doing it now, I said, hang on, I don't really need to be in Sao Paulo all the time. I can, you know, I've got a nice team here in Brazil, a nice team in the UK.
Yeah.
Why should I be stuck all the time here? And yeah, this talk has been very, very interesting. And the answer that I was looking for, how do you find time for everything? Process, systematize everything, and carry on thinking about your main goal, which is like have this freedom to be able to grow the business. Am I correct?
Yeah, I mean, it's buying freedom. It's starting from the place of, this is how I want to live my life. This is the freedom I want, but how do I maintain the same level of excellence whilst maintaining the same quality of life? And you know, beginning from that place and ending at that place as well, and not kind of bowing, you know, and you know, at a tactical level, there's all kinds of things that you can do, you know. Tactically, I have a calendar that only allows people to book me from 11 a.m. until 5 p.m. So you can't book in my calendar. I wake up at 4:30 a.m. every day. 4:30 a.m. to 11 a.m. is when I do my stuff, when I do business development, when I do the things I think that will, you know, lead to, you know, big leaps. And I do stuff I enjoy. I just do stuff that I want to do. You know, I write every morning, nothing to do with SEO. I write about, you know, how I'm feeling, or I journal basically, and I work. Yeah. So the other thing is starting at the point at which you know, having a kind of lifestyle design and building it in. And you know, it was difficult, but I said to myself, I can only take sales calls from 11 until 5 p.m. In my calendar, if you look at it, you can't book me between 1 and 2 because I have that always blocked out as lunch. On Friday, you can't book me after 3 p.m. And then it just became the case of, right, this is my calendar. I have to make sales in those hours. Otherwise, I'm not living the life I want to live. And it's scary at times, but when you burn your bridges to a degree, it becomes very powerful. And you know, you're right. I want to buy my freedom. I want to continue to buy my freedom. And it's about taking sometimes some scary steps, but you know, that's I think how you rise.
Amazing. It's like I've learned a lot, seriously. I'm in lessons that I'm gonna take to myself, and I hopefully people watching it, they've learned a lot. And we could talk here all afternoon, you know, could be like a very 5 hours of interviews talking about entrepreneurship and so on. But unfortunately, we have to move on and come to the end of this interview. And I have 2 little games that I'm doing with everyone that passes here. The first one is a phrase that you would tattoo on yourself. It could be something, a meaning of your life or the way that you work. I don't know, something that inspires you. You already got one.
I already have. I'm trying to find if I have it. There's one that I have, but there's another one that I want, but they both mean the same thing. But one of my favorite quotes is, it's 3 words: execution matters more.
Interesting. I couldn't like that phrase more, because I believe a lot in that, you know. Give to me, and now, because we use attitude at Hedgehog, you know. We like to say that we are an SEO agency with attitude, which means we go and do it, you know. Attitude is the fuel that motivates and makes us deliver the best results, because we just grab it and execute. Amazing. Nice phrase. The last part of the interview is like the 1-word game. I'm gonna give you a word and you give me a meaning around it. Yeah.
Oh crap. Okay.
One.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good one. SEO.
Growth.
Remote working.
Fun.
Pearl lemon.
Yellow.
Family.
Everything.
Cool. Man, thank you very much for being in the show with us. It's been amazing. I really enjoyed catching up with you. Really looking forward for when we can travel again. So maybe we can meet for a pint in London, or a caipirinha in Rio. So yeah.
Dude, it'd be good. You can come and fix my light bulb, which broke, which is why it's got dark as we've gone along. I was like, I'm in the dark. But yeah, you were like, dude's getting dark. I was like, damn, I came in. But yeah, listen, anyway, I had a lot of fun talking to you. The questions were great. And just thank you so much for letting me, be a part of your show.
Thank you very much. E esse foi mais um episódio do Don't Panic, It's Organic. Não esquece de seguir o canal e até a próxima. Bye, bye.